record this for Bobby. Bobby wants to listen. Okay, so we're going to start Parshat Balak tonight. We actually need a few minutes just at the end of Chukat, just to put ourselves in framing. Okay, so let's take a look at that quickly together. So 1 second, I'm going to fix my shot of you guys. Okay, so we wanted to pass through the land of Sichon and the Amorites. And Sichon, Lonatan Sichon Yisrael Avor Bigvulo, he did not allow us to pass through. By Yasof Sichon at Kol Amo, by Tzedek Krat Yisrael Hamidbara, by Yabo Yatsa, by Yilachem Yisrael. He came out to meet us in battle at the wilderness, and he came to Yahatz, and he did battle with Israel. By Yakel Yisrael Ficharev, and Israel smote him by the sword. By Yirash Etard, so it is an unexpected victory, and inherited his land. Me'arnon ad Yaboka b'nei Ammon ki'az gevul b'nei Ammon. From all these territories that are known in the Yabok till the children of Ammon, but that border was a strong border. We were not to do battle with the Ammonites. Israel took all of those cities. Israel pretty much settled themselves into the cities of the Amorites and Cheshbon, and which apparently is a big city there, and all of its dependencies. Cheshbon, and we have a little bit of history. You know, you should just know about Cheshbon. Was a Sichon, king of Amorite city, but he had fought with the king of Moab earlier, the original king of Moab, so he took all of his territory from him up until the Arnon. Now we have a little poetic description we're going to skip for now. And so the Israelites lived in Eretz HaMori, and then they want to check out Ya'azer, and they captured it. Okay. He also dispossessed the Amorites that were there. And then we went further north. Then we have to the Bashan. It's hard to identify where that is. And Og, the king of Bashan, went out to meet them. He and all his people at the place called Edrei. And God said, "Don't be afraid. Al tira'oto. Al tira'oto." Whenever God says, "Don't be afraid," what does that tell you?
Be afraid.
There was reason to be afraid, were it not for God telling you that he'll take care of this. What was the reason in this specific case? Who is it that is apparently arranging to do battle with him? Og. I don't think we had a chance to do an Og session, did we? Okay. By tradition, I'll turn off the screen for a second. By tradition, what do we know about Og?
Descendant of Amalek.
No.
Giant.
You're a giant. Og is a giant. And whether or not, actually in one midrashic trend, he is an everlasting giant who was, because we try to figure out where giants come from, and the answer is they come from prehistoric times, pre-Diluvian times, right? The Canaanites are big, but apparently he is gigantic, and so he comes from pre-Diluvian time, which means he lives for a few thousand years. Has he survived the flood? Anybody know that story? According to the Gemara, these are fantastical stories. And the Gemara has a whole discussion about the destructive nature of the flood waters. The rainwater was regular water, but the waters that came up from the ground, what would be the temperature of that water?
Volcanic.
Right, it is right. We have that, whatever the temperature of the core of the Earth's core is. So that was boiling water, and so the Gemara says that it was boiling water. And so the whole discussion, well, the pitch on the side of the ark, would that have melted away? And then he said also, how did Og survive? So Gemara kind of concludes that there was a miracle that happened, that pretty much said the waters just surrounding the ark were not, were cooled, while the rest of the earth was destroyed by the hot waters. Okay, but it imagines that Og survives by holding on to the side of the ark for a very long time, right? That's the story you have.
Is this Og and Magog? Is this the same
No.
Og?
That's Gog.
Gog.
Gog and Magog, Armageddon. That is end of days. But that's the figure they have of Og. He becomes this folklore, giant figure, and there's one more piece, which is one reason why they fear Og, not only his giant size, but the Torah describes when Lot is taken captive. When Lot is taken captive, when the kings, or the battle between the 4 and 5 kings, we're told Vayavo hapalit, and he tells that the one who had escaped and survived came running to tell Avraham about Lot's capture and to get Avraham to come and fight. Okay, the tradition is it's not a palit from the battlefield, but it's the palit, ha-palit, it's the one who survived the flood, okay? That Og was the one who came to Avraham to tell him about Lot and being taken captive. Again, this figure lives on forever and ever, but the presumption is because he played a role to try to help Avraham and his family, that Israel thought that he would be someone who they could not defeat because he had merits, special merits, okay? But right now, he's coming out to do battle with Israel. So he's a giant with merits, but God says, don't worry about that. You will defeat him. And indeed, the text tells us. I'm going to give him over to your hand, all his people and his land. You'll do to him like you did to Sichon. And they smote him and all his sons and all his people until not a single one was left. By Yeshua Tartso, and they take possession of his land. By Yeshua b'nei Yisrael, by Yachanu barvot Moav, me'ever le'den Yericho, and Israel journeys, and they encamp on the plains of Moab, opposite Jordan River at Jericho, which means by the time you read, by the time this parsha ends, where are the Israelites positioned? Where are the Israelites positioned by the end of the story? They're in the plains of Moab, opposite Jericho. What does that mean?
And that's either on the border or in Israel.
They are positioned to cross into Israel, right? They're on the opposite side of the Jordan, but in this parallel to Jericho, and now all they have to do is cross the Jordan River, and they're in, right? That's how Chukat ends. Let's say this for a second. We need a map, 1 or 2 maps to look at. Hold a second. Yeah, let's look at this one. Here you go. This is called a theoretical map of the Transjordan kingdoms. Just we understand what we just dealt with. So Israel had come up here. They go around Edom. You have this. I don't like this. This is a pretty bad map. Forget this map. I'll give a better map. Hold a second. Take a second. Okay, Edom's here. Yeah, Moab is there, and Sichon is there. And what are we told that Sichon had taken? Whose territory? What do the pasuk say? Let's read it again, because that's going to be very. Oops, wrong map. All right. I'll get the text again. The text said earlier on, and the Torah goes out of its way to tell you a bunch of things here. He took the territory that is defined as Sichon's territory, all this area from Moab. So Moab is to the south. It was once all the way here too, and further above the Dead Sea at Jericho, which is the plains of Moab, was all once one giant Moabite territory. But Sichon, who was apparently a very powerful king, took the territory. Okay, that we should know. It was significant in the storyline because what's the deal with Moab? Who is Moab? Anybody remember who he is?
The grandson, the son of Lot and his daughters.
Lot's daughters, right? Get him drunk and sleep with him.
Does that mean it's his son and his grandson?
Oh, what is I am my own grandpa?
Something like that.
Moab and Ammon are both his sons. Okay. And then they eventually become nations, and they're a nation here and the nation there, right? Ammon is here. Sichon is king of Emori. He takes over some of the Moabite territory. But one of the rules for Israel was that we were not allowed to do battle and take territory from, I'll be very specific about it, from any of those, from here. Hold on a second, I saw it. Here it is over here. Is it in this section? No. We're now to battle the king with the descendants of Esav, or at least Seir. We're now to battle Seir because God wants them to have a territory, and Moab and Ammon were also off limits to us. Moab and Ammon were off limits to us. So how could we take that whole section? How could we take all this territory here? So the Torah told you the answer. How? At one point, this was Moabite territory, but Sichon came and conquered the territory and became Sichon territory, Amorite territory. So when Sichon fights with us and we defeat him, we're taking Amorite territory and not Moabite territory, right? And so we don't have to feel we didn't break any rules. Didn't break any rules, okay? That's the way you get to. And so by the time we're done, Israel is primed. I didn't want this one, a different one. Hold on a second. Israel is.
But just one point of confusion for me. I thought Edom had something to do with Esav and not Lot, or is it both?
Edom is also Esav, and we're not permitted to fight them either. Okay, Edom is off limits to us. Moab and Ammon are off limits to us. Those three sections. Okay. If they come out and fight us, and then we have to fight back, there's another story, but we didn't, right? So that's how it's laid out for us. One more second, we need one more other math that will help us. Okay, fine. So we end up being way up north. There's another map that can be assisting us here. Exodus from Egypt. Let's look at this map for a second. Hold on. Cheshbon here. So let's get to. Can you see? No, this is a bad map. All right. So we're at Jericho. Sorry, you see Jericho here. So we're on this side of the Jordan River, opposite Jericho. That's the backstory to Parshat Balak. Now let's pick it up. Bayar Balak ben Zippor et kol asher asa Yisrael the Emori. Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Emori. What did we do to the Emori? Sichon, Melech Emori. What did we do?
Defeated them.
We had a surprise victory over Sichon. Now, by the way, just one thing you should also know, the Midrash claims that the Canaanites all put their entire hopes in Sichon being the bulwark to prevent the Israelites from making their way to Canaan. Okay, so and that's why he comes out to fight against us, and the presumption was that he would be victorious because he was apparently a mighty king. and we whooped them. So Balak ben Zippor is witness to this. He takes this all in. Who is Balak ben Zippor? We don't know yet. Pasuk Gimel. Vayagar Moab mipnei ha'am me'od, and Moab is very, very frightened of the people. Ki ravhu, because of our numerousness. Vayakat Moab mipnei bnei Yisrael, and Moab dreaded the Israelites. Rashi says that they wish they weren't alive in this moment. There's a real dread that has overtaken them because of our numbers. Our numbers. We're 600,000 men, 2 million people. Moab is a smaller nation, maybe with territory, but a smaller nation. Okay, so Moab, as we pointed out, was a chunk of it had been taken by Sichon, and now the Israelites own. The hill country then is to the south, and the plains of Moab are to the north, and we're now sitting in the plains of Moab. What are we doing there in the plains of Moab? What do you know about our story? What are we doing there? We're minding our own business. What is our interest at that point? What do we want to do?
Want to eventually get into the land of Israel.
That's it. We want to go west. We have no interest in staying there. It's not our destination, and we're not interested in making trouble, which is the ongoing point, right? We are not interested in making trouble. But apparently they're freaked out about us. Now, next pasuk, Vayomer Moab el ziknei Midjan, and Moab said to the elders of Midjan, Ata, now this assembly of people, this horde of people will lick up all that surrounds us like an ox licks up all of the greenery of the field. Uvalak ben Zippor melech Moab beitehi, and now we're told a new piece of information. That man Balak, who was taking it all in, he was the king of Moab at that time. All right, so we have Balak, who turns out to be the king. We have the nation of Moab, and now the nation of Moab chooses to have a conversation with whom? What does it say? Fourth pasuk.
Elders of Midjan.
The elders of Midjan. And it sounds like, you're right, they're talking to the elders of Midjan because this people are going to eat up everything that's surrounding us. So where do you sense it that Midjan is where? Adjacent, right? They're an adjacent people with some kind of interest in this. So this doesn't work. What do we know about Midjan? What do we know about Midjan? When was the last time we really paid attention to Midjan? Who's the most famous Midianite you know?
Balak.
Yitro.
Yitro. Yitro is the most famous Midianite. And Yitro is Moshe's father-in-law. And what do we know about Moshe and Midjan? Moshe fled to Midjan after he killed the Egyptian, right?
Right.
And he spent a good deal of time. It could be, many years. Could be from age 20 to age 80. Okay, it could be that long that he was there. Although commentators probably say he did a lot of time just sort of wandering around other places. But certainly a good part of his time is okay. And because when he chases away the shepherds and all that whole story. He's seen as an Egyptian guy who's, was apparently kind of, in a sense, is relatively fresh out of Egypt, although there are many tales that take it differently. Fine. So, but where is Midjan? So Midjan is, by most accounts, is here on the eastern side of the Red Sea. the Gulf of Aqaba, right? This is the Gulf of Aqaba, correct? And that would make it what? This is Jordan, southern Jordan. But Midjan's down here. Moab's over here. And where are the Jews right now? Over here. So what's strange about what the pasuk tells you?
There's a lot of traveling.
The elders of Midjan, Moab, the Moab talks to the elders of Midjan, saying, "There's people that came out of Egypt, right? Here they're eating up all they're everything is surrounding us, and now who Yoshemi Muli, and he's in position right next to me, and you're saying, what does that? What do they have to do with each other? This is like going far. This is far away. What does Moab have to do with Midjan? Okay, that's point number one. Number two, Rashi points out that this is actually had been a very hostile relationship between Moab and Midjan. Let's read this Rashi here. Yeah, Rafi, you want to read it for us?
Yes. Moab said to the Midyan, said to the elders of Midyan, but did not these Moab and Midyan always hate one another? Just as is stated in Breshit, who had smitten Midyan in the country of Moab, from which is evident that Midyan had come against Moab in war. But out of fear of Israel, they now made peace between themselves.
What do you think about this? What truth is it bringing forward to us? What we know about the world?
The enemy of my enemy.
You're right. Enemy is my friend.
Everybody hates the Jews.
Everybody hates the Jews, afraid of the Jews, certainly afraid of the Jews going to Canaan. And you can just go back to 1948 and you think about some of these. This pan-Arab or 67, all the pan-Arab unity was really not a natural unity at all. These were clans and tribes that were not buddies. They might all be Muslim, but firstly, some were Sunni, some were Shiite, and they weren't even nations for very long because the British and the French had only made them into countries and chopped them up and made countries out of them, long, right? But somehow they all figured out they're gonna work together, but out of the mortal threat that that little teeny nation was going to place by setting up in the partition plan of Israel, right? So what is described here is quite known to us. What's still not clear to me is why the Midianites are part of this at all. I understand if you told me that Moab and Ammon, although they were cousins, right, or some other adjacent nations, who both were in the path of the Israelites, decide to work together to deal with them, but that they're going to be they're going to go to Midjan, who's like out of the loop. Israel is not interested in going to Midjan. They've passed Midjan a long time ago. This is still strange. So is there more to the Midjan piece that we have to tease out other than simply, they're both feel threatened by it? The threat isn't clear to what the threat to Midjan is. You agree? Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to the Ramban now. And he tries to help us, put together more of the story here. All we had read until now was that Moab had some of the territory, right, towards in the mountains, towards the east, northern part of Jordan, and Sichon had conquered that, and then Israel defeats them. Okay, so let's read this now. Greg, you want to read? It appears to me.
But originally there were kings in Midian, but Sichon, the king of the Amorites, had fought against the former king of Moab and taken all his land out of his hand, even unto the Arnon. Above, he also, who is he in this case?
Sichon.
Above, Sichon also fought against the children of Ammon and took part of their land, just as the Ammonite king said to Jephthah, because Israel,
Mm-hmm.
Yiftach, because Israel took away my land when he came up out of Egypt. And Yiftach replied to him that they had taken it from Sichon.
Okay.
The book of Joshua, it is also written, and their border was Jazer and all the cities of Gilead and half land of the children of Ammon unto Aurora.
Okay, that's Joshua. Okay, and Sichon.
Furthermore, fought against the kings of Midian and conquered their land and made them his servants, bringing tribute. I'm lost. I'm going to keep reading. Hopefully someone else can
We'll
summarize
have it
this.
all together, right? And took the crowns.
And took the crowns off their heads, depriving them of the splendor of royalty, and he allowed them to remain as judges of the land of Midian under his authority. Therefore, they are called the elders of Midian, similar in expression.
So we have here psukim that until now, when most of the nations, we meet their leaders, right? We meet the king of this and the king of that, and we fight them. And in this story, we just meet Midjan, and then we speak about elders of Midjan. We have Moab, and then a little statement that's made about that Balak, then was the king of Moab. And so the Ramban wants to tell us a little bit, try to backfill a little bit more and say, these nations have been neutered by Sichon. Sichon was a very powerful figure, and he conquered these peoples and removed their leadership, but allowed sort of second-tier people to remain as judges and other things. But there was no king anymore of Midjan. That's why there's no discussion of the king of Midjan in our story. And the king of Moab apparently is just now the king of Moab. Okay, that's what he's trying to figure out about this. But there's going to be here's the thinking. Sichon defeated us, and Israel defeated Sichon. Therefore, what is our conclusion? Israel will easily defeat us, right? That's what Balak takes in. Vayar Balak mitzipor, he sees what Israel did to the Amorites, and he says, oh boy, we're in deep doo-doo, right? Let's work on alliances. And he pulls in Midjan, okay, even though he wants enemies, and they're going to try to come up with some strategies here, okay? What's Balak's role? What's his status? So let's look at this Rashi here first. Dan, you want to read this Rashi?
Balak was king of Moab at that time. At that time, he was not really entitled to the kingdom. He was actually one of the Midianite princes. But when Sichon died, they, the Moabites, appointed him as king over them to meet the needs of the time.
Okay, so now we have a little bit of sense of so Midjan is pulled into it because they've got a well-known figure who the Moabites think will be helpful to them. They bring in a relatively foreign and even once an enemy nation's power figure because of the needs of the time. Let's look at it. We'll skip the Ramban here. Let's look at what the Seforno says. You want to read this Seforno also? This martial arts, terrible translation. It should just be warrior. Okay, want to read it? Vayar Balak.
Vayar Balak, and a man who was famous and well schooled in all as
fighting. Okay.
Right. We find proof of this in the Judges. Do you imagine yourself to be superior to Balak, son of Zippor? Balak, in spite of his...
he's an example of a super warrior. Okay, Balak, in spite of his expertise?
In spite of his expertise, saw what had happened to Sichon, who had refused to let the Israelites pass, and had paid for this error with the loss of his life and his kingdom.
So there's panic. There's panic and people saying, oh my God, Israel's on the march. And so Moab, according to this read, reaches out to whoever is the most famous warrior that's still standing right now, and that apparently is Balak from Midjan down south, and they schlep him up and they say, we're going to make you, we're going to put you in charge and make you king, and you're going to fight this battle. And then Balak says, he assesses the situation and he concludes, this is not going to be successful, right? So let's go a little further. In a second, right? We can go through the rest of this right now. He turns to Bilam. Let's actually read the pasuk first, then we'll look at this Rashi. Psukim. Vayishlach malachim el Bilam ben Beor, Petorah asher al hanahar eretz b'nei amo likrolo. And he, right, Balak, sends messengers to Bilam, the son of Beor, to Petor, which is on the Nahar. When you speak of the Nahar, the river, apparently it is, as the note here suggests, the Euphrates River. That is the river. It is the first mother river, right? That's described even back in the creation story. So means that they go up to where? Where do you meet the headwaters of the Euphrates River? Anybody?
In Iraq somewhere.
Yeah, well, the Euphrates will run southward into Iraq. The headwaters are actually in Syria. Okay, and so that I think we've talked about in the past. So that when people journey from the Fertile Crescent, Abraham journeys to Israel. He goes north to Haran and then southwest to Israel. You go because you follow the Euphrates River north, and then you turn southwest from there. So he's somewhere. I don't know where Petor is exactly, but it's somewhere
northeast
river.
Turkey.
What?
Northeast Turkey, like was Armenia.
That far up it goes?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm mistaken. I thought the headwaters were there. Okay. So they really reach far for another guy. So Moab reaches south to Chap Balak. They bring him into the story. And then Balak, who's now strategizing with his old people and the Moabites, says we're gonna have to go get Bilam. And Bilam is far north. He's also out of the picture, but he's a guy who's got a reputation. I was brought in for my reputation as a warrior. Bilam's gonna be brought in also. Okay, so and we need you here. Let's finish the presentation first. What the messengers are supposed to say. To call him Lemor, saying, there is this people that came forth out of Egypt, and he hides the earth from view. And now he is positioned right next to me. I need you, Bilam, to come and curse them, curse this nation. It is too numerous and awesome for me to defeat in some way. Is it because of numbers or because of something else? I can't figure out where their koach comes from. Perhaps I will be able to strike them. And then I can drive him out of the land. Or you are. I know that whoever you bless is blessed, and whoever you curse is cursed. So we're going to bring you in to do what? Why is Bilam being called upon? What is he called to do?
To cast a spell.
Yeah, to curse them, and then what? By doing so, what will that enable? Play the scene out. Balak says, "Ulai uchal nakebo." Then perhaps I can strike him. What do I need to do? Something's protecting this people. They're just a bunch of schlubs. There are a lot of them, but there's a bunch of schlubs against Israel. And they're having these crazy, successful military battles against Og and Sichon, who are the mightiest of mighty. Now I'm second tier mighty, but these guys don't have the natural capacity to win these battles. They obviously are being protected by something. So what do I need you to do?
To
remove their protection, and then we can defeat them because we're better warriors than they are. That's what I need to do. You cast a curse on them, and then I can do my job. Maybe. That's the only way we're going to solve this. Because otherwise, I've seen all the greatest warrior nations fall to them inexplicably, and we need you to do that for us. Now, there's a version of this in the Rashi. Here, I'll take this Rashi. Let's go back to that. This is Rashi in the very first pasuk. And you want to read it for us, Alex? And what induced Moab?
And what induced Moab to take counsel of Midjan? When they saw that Israel was victorious in a supernatural manner, they said, the leader of these people grew up in Midjan. Let us ask them, what is his chief characteristic? They replied to them, his power lies only in his mouth in prayer. Whereupon they said, then we must come against him with a man whose power lies in his mouth.
Yeah.
Fire with fire.
So firstly, this is a variation on the question that we were asking before, like, how does Midjan get into this? So we have one version, which is that Balak is hired as a mercenary king from Midjan, and then he sleeps along some of his elders and thinkers with him. Okay, that seems to be one version of it, hired or brought in, right? But now we have this other version, which is the Moabites sit down. It's not because Balak is such a powerful person and he's a Midjanite, but why do we go to Midjan? Because we say, yeah, we noted before. Oops, where's that map? Let me get that map again. Not that, sorry, that's my calendar. Hold on. So Moshe spent a lot of time with you guys. He, 119 years old now, 119 years old, he is leading the Israelites into victory after victory, right? What's his power? So Moab says, we got to figure this out. Let's go ask the Midianites. Tell us about this man Moses before he became such a hot guy in Egypt. And tell us about him. And they said, oh, he's a man whose power is in his mouth. Now, admittedly, did the Midianites know that about Moshe? It's a strange Rashi.
Probably.
When was Moshe's power in his mouth? Only after he becomes he meets God at the burning bush, and he goes back to Egypt, never to go back to Midian again, and then suddenly he becomes the great Moshe. Here he was just the fleeing Moshe. Here he was a shepherd boy Moshe, right? So it's interesting that the Midrash's decision that the Midianites should know about him, but again they're grasping. Moab says maybe they know something, and I guess the lore and the stories of Moshe were well known in Midjan, partially because his father-in-law would produce newspaper articles every week at the men's club and say, let me tell you about what my son-in-law did this week, okay? Now, whether he's with them or not, we never knew. We never knew whether, did Yisro Taka go with them or not go with them, to go back home or not. But so somehow we're just going to build on that version of it. The Moabites, the Midianites know a lot about Moshe. And what do they know? His koach, his power is in his
words.
In his words.
Neum Moshe.
And apparently, they say we need to find someone whose power has the power that he can do with his mouth unbelievable things. And it seems that who is that person?
Bilam.
It is Bilam. Have they ever met Bilam? I don't know. We don't have a sense. And they head up to the Euphrates River to find him from far away, hundreds of miles away. So my guess is he also just has a reputation that they're going to try to that they hear about. Let's just take a look. We'll just conclude with that the opening piece of the journey. Vayalchu ziknei Moab and ziknei Midjan, and the elders of Moab and Midjan go. Ukasamim biyadam, and they carry with them enchantments, divination tools. Vayavo el Bilam, and they came to Bilam by the Rui Lav Divrei Balak. They said to him the words that we just read before about what the danger Israel poses, and we know what a powerful mouth you are. Vayomer Alehem, and he said to them, Linu po alayla, you guys sleep over. Vashivot etchem davar kasher yidaber Adonai elai. I will return word to you, whatever God says to me. Vayishvu Sarim Moab and Bilam, and the elders of Moab went slept over with Bilam. What's missing, by the way? Just this a subtle thing that if you don't pay attention, you don't see. What changed between verse 7 and verse 8 in terms of the players?
The Midianites and the Moabites.
Yeah. In verse 7, elders of Moab, elders of Midjan. And verse 8, just
The Moabites.
where are the Midianites? Where'd they go? That's just an interesting little piece you might miss. And so the Rashi actually built on this phrase that that they come ukusamim biyadam. What are they going with enchantments? What are these divining things? Take a look at the Rashi over here. Mick, you want to read it for us? And divinations were in their hands.
Yeah, and the divinations were in their hands, all kinds of divinations, in order that he should not say, I have not got my tools with me.
All right, so
Because-
they come, and they're on a mission to get this guy and bring him down quickly, right? And so he said, I've been sitting writing poetry. I don't have all my my toolkit, but
my divination tools.
right. And they say, don't worry, we got it here. A whole bag of anything you need, any tchotchke you need to an incantation, we got it all in here. Okay, but then look at the other reading, another explanation.
And another explanation is this omen, because the elders of Midian took with them. They said, if he comes with us at this time, there is something substantial in him. But if he puts us off, there is no use of him.
So this is very smart reading. They're saying not that they brought with them tchotchkes that that the diviners use to give to him. No, at least the Midianite people said, we're going to set up an omen, a test. The test is, if he comes with us right away, he's the real deal. If he puts us off,
Balak.
Bilam, right? If he puts
Bilam.
me off, then we know he's a huckster.
Mhm.
We never met this guy. The word is out. Oh, people saying, what, we're pulling out their hair. The Israelites are traipsing over everything and eating everything up, and there's no stopping them. I said, no, someone who has a power in his mouth. And they say, okay, let's go through who is such a person? They say, we heard of a man. His name is Bilam. He lives by the Euphrates River, right? And they say, okay, let's go over there. So the Midianite elders are saying, I'm not just buying this so easily. We got to check this guy out, whether he's the real deal or not. So consequently, when he told them, go ahead, let's read the rest of it, Mick.
Consequently, when he told them, stay here tonight, they said, there's no hope of him. There's no hope in him. They left him and—
What does that mean? There's no hope in him.
He failed the test.
Yeah, he's a phony. We don't think he's the real deal. And they did what?
They left him and went away. As it is said, the princes of Moab stayed with Balaam, but the princes of Midian went away.
Really interesting. They're assessing this man in the first moment, and they say, we're going to size him up very quickly. If he's mature and says, all right, this is a serious matter, I think I have an approach to this, and I'm going to come with you. So then we know he's for real. If he's saying, oh, let's sleep over, I need to ask some questions, they say, don't play with this. Is not a guy to play with. Whose instincts are correct?
The elders, right?
What?
The elders.
The elders of Midjan's instincts are probably correct. If this story, if our Kishka is going to tell us that Bilam is a big fraud, maybe not. We'll have to really read the story differently. But one is that he is, and they get him. They read him right away. But when he's your only hope, the Midianites don't need him. They live far south, but the Moabites need him. He's their only hope. And so they have to convince themselves even that he is the real deal. And so they stay the night. And the rest of the story we continue, God willing, next week. Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's good.
I do want to ask one question. A few of the people that have been learning with us were preferring a later hour. And even on Tuesday night and a later hour. So what is your inclination about a later hour? And you folks here.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I like this thought. I would propose a compromise if we're going to go much later.
Yeah.
This time is good for me as well.
This time is good for you. This time is good for my brain.
Yeah, agreed.
Likewise.
I
My
agree
brain
with
starts to
that.
turn to mush later on. So all right, let me think about it. And some folks said that can we just start like at 8 o'clock or 8:15 even, and by 9, which is not terrible. But it wouldn't be Monday night if that was the case. So all right, let me play with this a little bit. Meanwhile, for now we're sticking with this slot, and if we change it, I'll of course reach out to all of you. All right.
Thank you, Rabbi.